Back with another video. There's so much to discuss. Dana White dropped a lot of fight announcements last night, and I did make a reaction video last night talking about some of the fights, some of the big announcements, and the audio for that video was absolutely horrendous. I've taken it down from my channel. I was just like, man, that video is not gonna get any views, and sure enough, it did not get a lot of views. Plus the fact that I try to talk about Topuria moving up to the lightweight division in a separate video, and the audio still wasn't all that great. So I've decided to re-record it. I've decided to, probably make separate videos talking about UFC 315 and 314 in another video. But in this video, guys, I want to talk about Ilia Topuria vacating his featherweight belt and now moving up to the lightweight division. What does that mean? We kind of know what's going to happen next, right? Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev is the fight that needs to happen next. And in this video, the main point of this video is for me to convince you guys that that's the fight that needs to happen next. And I think for most people, for most MMA fans, I think they tend to agree with that statement. I think most fans want to see Islam versus Topuria next. But there's some people out there, even part of Islam Makhachev's team, Islam Makhachev's fans, that don't want to see Topuria fight him next, and they want to see Topuria needs to fight contenders in the lightweight division to earn that opportunity to fight Islam Makhachev, which I absolutely disagree, and I'm going to be talking about that in that video. There's people from Islam Makhachev's team saying that, what's the point of fighting Topuria? He's just another featherweight. Oh, it doesn't do that much for Islam's legacy. Not true whatsoever. I'm going to deny that in this video. I'm going to prove that that's absolutely not the case. And I honestly think that, Islam Makhachev, I don't think he's afraid of Ilia Topuria. I really don't. I don't think he's afraid of anybody. But I definitely think there's people in Makhachev's team that understand the threat that Topuria is to Makhachev. And it's a very, very dangerous fight. And I think they would honestly kind of advise him not to take that fight and kind of let Topuria maybe fight a Charles Oliveira first, or maybe fight a Dustin Poirier. But I'm going to make the point in this video, like I said, that that should not happen next. Now, to counter the point that, Topuria should not fight Islam Makhachev next, one, Topuria, he's a featherweight champion. He just vacated his belt. He's coming off 2 impressive wins, beating 2 of the greatest featherweights of all time in Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski in dominant, knockout fashion, nasty fashion. It's not like he went to close fight with both Volkanovski and Max Holloway and now is trying to vacate the belt to fight Islam Makhachev. That would be a different story, right? Topuria has been incredibly dominant. He's incredibly powerful. He's actually fought in the lightweight division before at short notice against Jai Herbert, where he got dropped in the first round and then was able to knock him out in the second round. So it wouldn't be like the first time that Topuria fights in the lightweight division. So, that doesn't make sense, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, if Topuria would have lost against Max Holloway and then, he moved up to the lightweight division and was trying to get the fight with Makhachev, then I would be like, yeah, Topuria probably needs a couple more wins, probably needs one big win in the lightweight division if he wants that chance to fight Islam Makhachev. But, he's a featherweight champion. He hasn't lost. He's undefeated. It's a big fight. This is a big fight. And the other thing as well is that there's no other big fight for Islam Makhachev. Right now, the UFC isn't too happy with Arman Tsarukyan, with what happened at UFC 311, with him pulling out of that fight, probably due to weight issues. So they're not happy about that whole situation. So why would they reward Arman Tsarukyan with a Topuria fight? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They're probably going to make Arman Tsarukyan maybe fight the winner of Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker, maybe a Charles Oliveira rematch. But I just don't see how Arman Tsarukyan fits into the picture against Topuria, right? I don't think Arman versus Makhachev is a big fight. It's a fight that we wanted to see. It's a fight that should have happened in January. But I don't think the UFC is too happy with Arman Tsarukyan. Now, for Charles Oliveira, as much as I love Charles Oliveira, I don't think Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, the rematch, is a fight that interests a lot of fans. I don't think it's a fight that interests Islam Makhachev. I don't think that beating Oliveira again does more for your legacy than beating an Ilia Topuria. So I don't understand the argument there for Makhachev fans, them saying that, oh no, he needs to fight another lightweight. What, bro? He's already fought lightweights. He fought Charles Oliveira. He fought Renato Moicano, who he was supposed to fight Arman Tsarukyan. He fought Dustin Poirier. So it's not like he's only been fighting featherweights. He fought Volkanovski twice. The first time, obviously, Volkanovski deserved to move up. But the second time was only because Charles Oliveira pulled out of the rematch. That was the only reason why Volkanovski got a rematch against Islam Makhachev. You know what I'm saying? So I hate this narrative that they're trying to paint that Islam Makhachev's legacy is going to be, not legit because he's been fighting featherweights and like, Topuria needs to fight like another lightweight before that. Like, no, man. The fight to make next is Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. It's a perfect window right now. It's a perfect window. One, Islam Makhachev, he did not have a war against Renato Moicano. It was a fight that ended relatively quickly. He did not take that much damage in that fight. That was back in January. So, the summer is the perfect time to make that fight. Topuria hasn't fought since Abu Dhabi against Max Holloway. So, he's had more than enough time to probably bulk up to the lightweight division properly. And it's a fantastic fight, international fight week. It's a super fight. It's one of the greatest fights they can make right now. It's one of the most skilled fights ever. And I think this fight for both fighters, it does so much for their legacy. Like, Islam beating Topuria does more than Islam beating Saryukin again, or beating Dan Hooker, or beating a Justin Gaethje, or beating a Charles Oliveira. So this narrative that, oh well, Islam's resume is not going to be great because he fought featherweights, like, that's absolutely insane. If anything, beating a Topuria who's undefeated, who's been knocking out guys out like Max Holloway and Volkanovski. I mean, we just saw what Max Holloway did moving up to the lightweight division and fighting a Justin Gaethje. You know what I'm saying? Max Holloway knocked out Justin Gaethje in horrible fashion. A Justin Gaethje that was having a career resurgence and was coming off wins over Dustin Poirier, a knockout win in fact, and then a good win over Rafa Fiziev. So it's not like he fought a Justin Gaethje that was washed. So we know that featherweights can move up and have a lot of success. So I just hate this narrative that the Islam Topuria fight should not happen next, that it's disrespectful to Makhachev. Absolutely not. This is a perfect fight for Makhachev, beating Topuria and then potentially moving up and getting that second belt against Jack Della Maddalena or Shakar Romanov later this year, because obviously Bilal and JDM are going to fight in May. That does so much for Islam's legacy. He would be the GOAT of the sport. Now, if Topuria wins, he's the GOAT of the sport, plus he's not holding up the featherweight division, and he would be the true champion of the lightweight division. And then you have so many fun fights with Charles Oliveira. Maybe, I don't think Dustin Poirier would be fighting by then. Armin Saryukin, maybe an Islam Makhachev rematch. Who knows? There would be so much possibilities. And obviously, we already have Volkanovski and Lopez, which I'll probably talk about in a separate video. But that would be so incredible, guys. That's the fight that needs to happen next. And the reason why I also had to make this video is because I see this narrative getting pushed out there that, Topuria, Poirier, the boxing exchanges would be insane. Oh my goodness, that fight would be crazy. Guys, I love Dustin Poirier. The guy is absolutely past his prime. Him slugging it out with Islam Makhachev on the feet. What do you think Topuria does to Poirier in those boxing exchanges? He murders him. Honestly, he freaking murders him. I know that's a hot take. That's probably going to piss off a lot of Dustin Poirier fans. But a Dustin Poirier right now, that doesn't excite me. He doesn't deserve the fight. He's coming off a loss to Islam Makhachev. He needs to fight a Nate Diaz. He needs to fight maybe the winner of Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje, for a retirement fight. I just don't see why that fight makes a lot of sense. Because then who is Islam going to fight? You know what I'm saying? Like, is Islam really going to wait until October? He didn't take any damage in his January fight. Like, why are you going to hold Islam Makhachev all the way until October to defend his lightweight title? Plus, by then, who knows what's going to happen in the welterweight division. You're just pushing things longer. The fight to make now is Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. Now, the Topuria-Charles fight, obviously that fight would be exciting. I still think Topuria wins, but it's definitely a dangerous fight. Charles has good power. He's nasty on the ground. I mean, he hasn't been knocking guys out left and right, in my opinion. And I think that he is hittable enough. He is chinny enough for, in one exchange, for Topuria to catch him. I think he puts down Charles Oliveira. But it would be a very, very fun fight. I just don't think it should happen, man. I just don't think it should happen. Not that I wouldn't want to watch those fights. Not that those fights wouldn't be fun. But the Makhachev Topuria fight is right there. It's right in front of us. Like, they need to make that fight. I think Makhachev is going to accept that fight. I'm a little bit more worried about his team kind of pushing him to, like, not take the fight and trying to say, like, no, Topuria needs to establish himself as a true lightweight, which makes absolutely no sense when, like, you just fought Renato Moicano, dog. Like, Charles Oliveira, he's only coming off one win against Michael Chandler. Before that, he lost to Armin Saryukin. So it's not like he has a crazy win streak. And then he beat a Michael Chandler who hadn't fought in 3 years and was coming off a loss. Like, does he deserve a title shot? Obviously, Armin Saryukin deserved the title shot, but the UFC isn't too happy with him right now, so he's not getting the next title shot. So Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje, like, if Dan Hooker wins, do people really want to see Dan Hooker versus Makhachev too? I don't think so. Justin Gaethje versus Makhachev, that's more exciting than Topuria, even though we've seen Gaethje, lose a couple title fights now. Does that excite you? You see my point here? The only fight to make is Topuria, guys. That's the only fight that needs to happen next. That's the fight I want. That's the fight that everybody wants. And I'm a little bit afraid that the UFC is going to fumble this. I hope they don't think that Topuria needs to get another win before he fights Makhachev. I think it makes absolutely no sense. And if they really wanted to do that, then I think they should have done a fight earlier in the year so then Topuria could fight him in the summer. I just don't like the idea of holding Makhachev and then putting Topuria, a fight that's kind of meaningless, because if Poirier wins, he's just going to retire. And you know what I'm saying? People are just going to say, oh, well, he beat a Poirier that's washed, and, which he is. He's absolutely declined. If you don't believe that, go watch his fight with Khabib. Go watch his old fights with, the Max Holloway rematch. So, Topuria versus Makhachev is the fight that needs to happen next, guys. That's the fight that we all want to see. And I want to know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. I'm going to still talk about some of the other fight announcement in a separate video. The audio should be a lot better. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know your comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.